Who has the local authority to enforce or overturn emergency health orders will change under legislation agreed upon this week. We're joined by Indiana Public Broadcasting State House reporter Brandon Smith to talk about this and other issues as the state wrapped up its 2021 session. Hello, Brandon. So the bill would allow elected officials, not county health officials, to have the final say on health emergency orders. Why the change?
Well, Republican lawmakers who were the ones spearheading this legislation said they wanted that authority at the local level to rest with an elected official, the way that the governor takes input from the state health department and FSSA, but ultimately as an elected official makes the final calls. Now, what opponents of this legislation say is that you're actually tying the hands of local health officials who are best positioned to make those calls about health cases. We'll see if the governor signs it into law, but that bill was passed here in the final week of session, which wrapped up Thursday with a surprisingly near unanimous approval of a new state budget. Republicans called the 2021 legislative session transformational. Democrats were not quite so effusive with their praise, but everyone agrees it was a session no one will likely forget, impacted in every way by the COVID-19 pandemic. House Speaker Todd Houston lamented the lack of connection among lawmakers this year, driven by the pandemic, but he says COVID-19 also brought positive change.
Really forced communication among members on their bills to be far better. And I think the challenge for Senator Bray and I moving forward is how do you sustain that?
The session ended with the passage of a new $37 billion budget. It gives a big boost to K-12 spending and includes $5 billion in one-time spending focused on paying down debt and investing in infrastructure projects and economic recovery. Still, Senate Minority Leader Greg Taylor says some priorities were misaligned. He cites a decision not to mirror the federal government and allow Hoosiers to deduct unemployment benefits from their 2020 taxes.
But at the same time, the PPP loans that the business community sought and they're going to be forgiven, we don't tax this income in Indiana. I think that's a stark contrast.
COVID-19 is also changing the way the session ended. Technically, the session will keep going until this fall, when lawmakers return for redistricting.
And Brandon, education spending makes up about half of the state's total budget. Where's that money going?
Yeah, the billions of dollars, literal billions of dollars that bolstered the state budget in the final couple of weeks of session, a lot of that's going to education in an unprecedented increase, $1 billion new dollars for K-12 education. Now, what Democrats are both happy and upset about is, for one, they're a little upset that there's a significant expansion of the state's private school voucher program, but a lot of that K-12 money is going to traditional public schools, and for the first time, as President Pro Tem Roderick Bray points out, there is specific language in the budget that directs schools to dedicate at least 45% of their per-pupil funding to teacher salaries.
We're hopeful that that helps those dollars get into the classroom and get into the teachers' pockets where we really truly want them to be.
And Brandon, lawmakers passed a ban on COVID-19 vaccine passports in the waning hours of the session. What's behind that bill?
Well, obviously vaccine passports have been in the news, and so Republicans have started to talk about that at the State House the last few weeks. What the final language says is that the state and local governments cannot issue or require vaccine passports for COVID-19, which would show proof of immunization status. Unlike earlier provisions of the bill, it has nothing to do with private businesses or the private sector, but Democrats like Representative Ed Delaney say it's solving a problem that doesn't exist.
I'm in the United States of America. This year's 2021. There's no such thing as an immunization passport. There is such a thing as a concern about health.
Brandon, we have just a few seconds. What are some of your takeaways during a session during a global pandemic?
Yeah, everything was different. The way they met, the way the public was able to participate, the process itself, everything about this session changed because of COVID-19. It'll be interesting to see what stays changed forever.
All right, Brandon, thank you so much for all of your reporting during the session. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe.